The West had the money. The West had the media. The West had the machines. And yet, India outsmarted them all. Not with war. Not with rage. Not with revenge. India outsmarted the West with something far more powerful strategy born from soul. They thought India was behind. But India wasn't behind. India was watching. They thought India was confused. But India wasn't confused. India was calibrating. They thought India was too divided to succeed. But they didn't understand India turns complexity into strength. And now the world is waking up to a truth it didn't see coming. India never played the West's game. It created its own. Let me tell you what the West didn't see. They thought they could measure power in GDP, warships, and sound bites. But India moved in silence. India played the long game. It didn't fight for attention. It fought for alignment. And that's the genius. Because India knew in a world burning with ego and speed, the real winner is the one who waits, who listens, who plans with patience. And while the West was sprinting, India was positioning itself in tech, in diplomacy, in trade, in the human spirit. Let's look at what happened. While global superpowers were caught in endless conflicts, India was building bridges. While others printed money, India invested in digital infrastructure, transforming 1 billion people into one of the most connected populations on earth. While they exported fear, India exported faith, tolerance, and calm. And while the West obsessed over who leads the G7, India quietly built the global South's respect. That's not luck. That's strategy. A strategy rooted in something deeper than algorithms' wisdom. India's strategy has 3 secret weapons. And none of them are what the West expected. Weapon 1 seen, patience. India doesn't rush. It doesn't react. It responds. For decades, people mocked India's slow politics, its bureaucracy, its debates. But here's what they missed. India is a democracy of 1.4 billion people. The loudness is not dysfunction. It's a symphony in the making. While other nations collapse under uniformity, India thrives in diversity. Because patience builds resilience. And resilient nations don't break. They bend and rise. Weapon 2000 depth of identity. The West never understood this. It kept asking, why doesn't India pick a side? Why doesn't India follow our model? Because India already has its own model. A civilizational model. Not created in the last 200 years, but shaped across 5,000 years. A model where values matter more than velocity. Where the soul of a nation is more powerful than its army. India never needed to become like the West. India needed to become more of India. And that's exactly what it did. Weapon 3A, strategic neutrality. This is what stunned the West. In global conflict after conflict, India didn't take orders. It took positions of principle, whether it was trade, energy, or war. India navigated with balance. It didn't submit to pressure. It didn't collapse under headlines. It didn't need to scream. It just kept moving calmly, intelligently, independently. And that made the world stop. Because when a nation says no without fear, but still commands respect, you know they've outgrown the game. Let's go deeper. The real genius of India's strategy is this: it wins without fighting. Sun Tzu once said, the supreme art of war is to subdue the enemy without fighting. India didn't need war. It needed leverage. And it built that leverage through 1.4 billion consumers, global technology exports, a trusted diplomatic voice, cultural influence that no border can stop. Yoga, Ayurveda, Bollywood, meditation. These are not just trends. They are soft power missiles, winning hearts where bullets never could. The West didn't even realize it was being influenced until it was already transformed. That's the highest form of strategy. Let's talk about digital India, the part the West never expected. While the world argued about Facebook and privacy, India created Aadhaar, the world's largest biometric ID system. India linked identity, payment, and public service to empower the poorest. Then came UPI, a real-time payment system that even the US is now studying. In villages where there used to be no bank accounts, now people are sending money with a fingerprint. That's not just progress. That's civilizational innovation. Solving poverty with code, bridging tradition and technology. and doing it quietly. So while the West sold fear, India built trust. While they built weapons, India built well-being. And while they chased headlines, India chased harmony. That's why the old world is struggling. Because India didn't fight their way. It simply outgrew their map. They were playing chess. India was playing Go, the game of territory, patience, and quiet control. And in Go, the master wins not by attacking, but by creating space so wide, the opponent runs out of moves. That's what India has done. And here's the most powerful part. India didn't just outsmart the West with policy. It did it with people. 1.4 billion people with fire in their hearts and freedom in their minds. Engineers, teachers, soldiers, saints, young entrepreneurs who code by day and pray by night. Mothers raising future leaders with stories of Krishna Gandhi and Abdul Kalam. Fathers teaching discipline not through fear, but through example. These people, they are the strategy. They are the weapon. They are the reason the world is turning east. Because India didn't conquer the West. It outgrew it. Let's be honest. The West didn't lose to India in battle. It lost in vision. Because while they were obsessed with domination, India was focused on integration. While they asked, how can we stay on top? India asked, how can we rise without stepping on anyone? That is strategic brilliance. And now, quietly, power is shifting. Not through war, but through wisdom. India has become the bridge between worlds, between East and West, between ancient and modern, between logic and spirit. And no one saw it coming, because they were too busy watching India's GDP and not its depth. Here's what scares the old world the most. India didn't collapse under the pressure to conform. They threw every model at it: capitalism, communism, consumerism. India absorbed what served it and discarded the rest. And it emerged with a model of its own conscious growth. Growth with respect. Growth with roots. Growth that doesn't sacrifice its soul to gain the world. In doing this, India didn't just outsmart the West. It outgrew the very idea of the West. And that is genius strategy. You see, power built on fear collapses when fear fades. Power built on faith, it expands forever. That's what the West is seeing now. India's strategy isn't based on enemies. It's based on essence. And that essence is undeniable. India doesn't need to fight to be great. India is great by design. Great in diversity. Great in durability. Great in the dance between soul and system. This is why the world is slowly turning to India. Not for weapons, but for wisdom. Because when the noise of the old world collapses, the world will look for a new rhythm. And India already has the beat. Let's talk about the ultimate strategic move. The rise of India's global influence without conquest. No colonies, no invasions, no propaganda machines. Just inspiration. Indian minds now lead global companies. Indian culture now shapes global wellness. Indian values are finding homes in non-Indian hearts. And all of this happened without a single shot fired. Because India didn't need to push. It needed to be. And in simply being India, the world followed. That's what you call unbeatable strategy. It's not about silencing others. It's about being so clear in who you are that others naturally realign. That's what happened. And here's the twist. India didn't rush to prove it had arrived. Because India never left. It simply paused. It simply listened. It simply waited. And when the time came, India didn't knock on the door. It became the door. The door to the future, to balance, to being whole again. This is what I want you to understand. India's genius strategy wasn't built in war rooms. It was built in classrooms, kitchens, temples, and dreams. Built by mothers who believed their children would do better. By students who refused to give up. By farmers who worked with dignity. By youth who never stopped believing that one day the world would see them for who they are. India outsmarted the West, not through dominance, but through devotion. Devotion to identity, to self-discovery, to something greater than the game. And now, as the world looks east, the question is no longer, can India lead? The question is, are we wise enough to follow? Because India isn't rising alone. It's lifting others. It doesn't say, bhag with us. It says, walk with us. That's the new power.